The science behind the product actually is quite simple. We are trying to put our bodies in a kind of a cold shock and to request body to react on that shock and to do the best what it can to still alive, to keep itself alive, and even more than that, to try to rebuild itself, trying to fight with the cold. So, and we have two different type of cold procedures. One is a cold procedure, as we call it, as it is, and the other one is a cryo procedure. The difference between those two is actually in the temperature level. We call cold procedure all the procedures where the temperature through the procedure wouldn't go down more than, or let's say less than 166 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 110 degrees Celsius. And the cryo procedure is everything which is below that. When we say everything, we would like to say that the cryo procedure could be considered when we use nitrogen, liquid nitrogen, as a cold agent. Because the boiling temperature of the nitrogen is 196 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 330 degrees Fahrenheit. So nitrogen allows us to put the temperature that low. So the difference in the biological reaction of our bodies on these two different type of procedures are as follows. So the cold procedure requests our body to heat up the blood inside the core and to push it to peripheral tissues, to all our extremities, to keep those tissues actually in a warm condition and not to let it undergo hypothermia, which actually quite lethal procedure, or let's say process, if we do not put enough attention on it. So that can actually continue until body still have enough power to produce enough heat to heat up the blood and to keep our peripheral tissues warm enough. Then after that, when the body cannot actually produce enough heat, the cold start penetrating our tissues, our muscles, start cooling down the blood, and when the blood goes back to the core and core temperature goes down to 2 to 3 degrees, then we're dying. Cryo procedure has completely different reaction of our body on it. When we put quite severe cold on the surface of skin, and in our cabin skin surface goes down on temperature to approximately 40 degrees in the first 30 seconds, and actually in 1 minute it goes down to approximately 35 degrees. So all the cold sensors that we have in our skin create combined pretty powerful signal which is sent to the brain that we are in a big jeopardy of death of cold. So brain understands that it is almost impossible in such cold environment to produce enough heat to heat up the blood and push it to peripheral tissues to keep those tissues alive. Instead, brain sends the signal to constrict all peripheral tissues and to push blood inside the core and to try at least to keep a core temperature intact for as long as possible, trying to survive this severe cold. So we have to say here that only 20% of our blood actually contains in the veins and arteries. The rest is in capillaries, in venulas and arterioles. So we're talking about 80% of the blood which almost immediately push down to the core. So our systolic blood pressure goes up for approximately 10 points, and our blood starts circulating inside the core faster on the, as we call it, short circle, and the temperature of the blood goes up. And on the peak of the procedure, it could reach even approximately 104 Fahrenheit, which will not be very much feelable for our body since we are in a cold environment. But it is very effective to kill all the viruses that we can have in our blood, because if you know, a reaction of our body on any kind of cold actually to heat up the blood to kill the virus. That's what we do actually in a few moments without any kind of collateral damages. or any kind of bad feelings as we have when our temperature goes up in the natural environment, like when you have a flu and you have all the kind of pains in your joints, in your muscles, your temperature goes up. That's how your body fights. But you feel it, and you actually kind of suffering all that kind of fight. So but through 3 minutes of the procedure inside the cabin, you do not feel all that feelings, but you still have a positive results after all. Besides, trying to keep ourselves as long as possible in a life condition, our body tries to release all the resources that it has in itself to fight the problem. So it means hormones, enzymes are going into the bloodstream. Oxygen level goes up in the bloodstream. And ultimately, even hemoglobin level goes up after a certain number of procedures. So we actually have what we call supercharged blood. And that blood being circulating around our internal organs creates the wonderful environment for rehabilitation of our internal organs if they undergo any kind of problem in the past, and also to rebuild our organs if we're talking about cell regeneration. And then having all that in place, we actually have the great opportunity to start the original given to us by nature self-regulating processes in our core. Then when we step out of the cabin and the signal disappears from the skin surface and all our constricted previously tissues are dilated, the blood, which we know already with quite high pressure, goes back to peripheral tissues. And very often it can reach even those places which were not reachable before the procedure. Like we're talking about spiked capillaries, spiked venulas, and arterioles. So blood actually can open it again because of the nature of the blood and the high pressure. Besides, this supercharged blood helps us actually to withdraw all the toxins from under skin layer, which helps us actually to detoxify our skin. It helps as a procedure to produce more collagen, and collagen is very important for skin elasticity. It also increases metabolic rate in order to produce heat. And that's actually what we have on biochemical level of our, let's say, body. And we have two more levels which modern medicine does not even talk about. We're talking about energy level and informative level. As we have our blood circulating inside blood system, which is net for our blood, same net we have for energy, which we call meridians, 12 main meridians and a lot of collateral meridians. Those doctors who are acupuncturists, they know what I'm talking about. And just 5-6 years ago, acupuncturists were considered as doctors. So the same thing we have for our informative level or information exchange level, which we call nerve system, which is also net. So we know from the law of physics that if we get electric wire and heat up one end of it and cool down the other end, electric current will appear in that wire because of the difference of the temperature. The same thing happened with our energy system. Main meridians actually are buried inside our bodies, but collateral meridians goes to the surface. Actually, main meridians also end up on the surface, but not that much as collateral. When we have temperature on the skin surface goes down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and we still have 98.5 degrees Fahrenheit the temperature inside the core, that big difference on the temperature on two ends of one or any of collateral meridians, including main one to a certain extent, creates a heavy energy flow inside our body. So not only we actually push our body to start producing enough energy to feed our internal organs, but also we flush away all the stagnated energy, or as we call, clogged knots. So these knots, if they are clogged, they do not let energy go through, and if energy cannot reach organ which is supposed to be fed by this energy, organs start dying. And let's say we have spleen, which is lack of energy. It starts dying, and we do not know about that until it manifests itself on the biochemical level. But that's too late, because organ is almost destroyed. And even if using modern medicine we start eating or consuming any kind of medication trying to help the spleen to work at least somehow, we're just fighting symptoms. We do not know where the source of the problem is. And we know now it's just because there is not enough energy to support that spleen operating. So after that procedure, or let's say set of the procedures, because nothing can happen after one procedure only, we can actually help our body to recreate the, let's say, manufacturing of the energy, and also to open all the ways for the energy to go and reach the final destination, which are our organs. On this point we can stop talking about energy, and actually we covered 2 levels out of 3. We covered biochemical level and energetic level. So now we can go to the most important level, which is informative level. So if you ask anyone on the medical, let's say, environment, from the doctor who just finished university up to the very famous doctor, how immune system works, they will say no, they do not know how. They know it works, yes, but how? Nobody knows. Immune system, it's a part of informative system of our body, which tries to help us to recognize who is intruder, who is alias, and if it is intruder, to find the way how to fight it out. Autoimmune problems, which are, for example, psoriasis, that's when immune system does not understand and cannot recognize who is who and start fight itself, which is definitely not good for our body. Someone from the medical environment may blame me that I do not use proper words to explain things. Could be right, but what's the reason for me to use those words which they use, not have an opportunity to explain anyway anything? So I'm just explaining it from my point of view, and from the point of view of those who consider cryotherapy is a very helpful, let's say, procedures to help ourselves to come to the point of original self-regulating processes that we have been given to us by nature. That's the most important thing about cryotherapy. It doesn't have any collateral damages because it doesn't do anything to the body. We do not treat anything, we do not cure anything. We just ask our bodies to start operate the way which nature ordered them from the beginning. And if we can undergo that level, so I'm pretty positive we can get very positive results trying to help ourselves to heal itself. That's actually how it works.